Where do I where do I even begin? This is a really tragic finale for the Wonder Egg Priority series, and I hold hope that this is an indication that they will continue the series, but at this point I don't think that they will, just because of all the issues they've had. And honestly, the uproar this episode is going to cause, and obviously has caused, but yeah, this is my thoughts on the 13th episode of Wonder Egg Priority, the finale, the end of the series, if you want to even call it that. I immediately after watching this episode, which was a storm all itself. I mean, we had literally a 8-hour delay before it even hit Funimation. I'm assuming they had to translate it after it broadcast in Japan, which I think is honestly on the studio's side unacceptable, just because they were managing this while it was airing. I don't know why they suddenly have a problem with that now, but that aside, and then Funimation having issues actually streaming it at its full length. It kept streaming at 23 minutes. We finally got it to work at nearly, it was nighttime by the time it finally was able to be played, but I watched it. Now, let's get over the first issue, which is the fact that they decided to announce, hey, we got an hour-long finale. I should know by this point. I should honestly expect this at this point, that if a studio announces they have a 1-hour episode or there's a special or something, it's gonna be a recap. And I don't know why they do that. I think it's this idea of hyping up something that doesn't even exist. It's this idea of, hey, don't worry. Not only is it the finale, not only will this be the true ending, but it's going to be a full hour long. No, half of that was a recap. That's not a full hour long episode. That is you basically saying, hey, go watch the entire series again, and now we'll show you this 30-minute long or this half hour episode. But so streaming issues aside, availability aside, and the 1 hour fake out with a half recap, which I honestly, at this point, after so long, I was fine watching a recap. I honestly was hoping there'd be something new in there, because they were saying this was going to be the true ending. So I was expecting that something would have been changed, and that they were trying to say, here, let's recap you and show you what honestly should have changed. But honestly, it was the same ending. But the ending itself was, like I said, it's a case of I hope this was done with the intentions that there's going to be a second season, because the way that they lay this out was not an ending. If this is their ending, they screwed up bad. If they have intentions for a second season, I'm fine with it. So let me get that straight beforehand. And the problem with really it not being a continuation with a second season is the fact that instead of answering questions and concluding things, they only answered a couple questions and created a million more. And that's not how you end something. And I think that's where a lot of people's frustrations is coming from. And equally, I'm not too into the idea of getting into parallel personalities and that kind of stuff. Like Kotobuki shows up out of nowhere and is like, oh, I'm a parallel self. No, wait, what? What? Like, I was fine with the idea that when you're in the dream world, you can access, parallel selves, and they're all linked through no, now Kotobuki is basically just, how'd you do it? Like, how did you just said, hey, that one's dead, I'm gonna go over there. It's like, let me step over here, and I'm now in your world. Why? I don't know. I just thought I'd go to this world. There's no reason why. I was watching you guys and said, man, this is a crazy world. I'm gonna just go jump over here because this person's dead. I don't like my other world. It's not really explained, but I guess kind of kicking things off in the beginning, obviously we see Ai Oto, and she's kind of she's struggling with the fact of what she's seeing with this other self basically sacrificing herself to save her. It kind of gives an indication later on that her choice not to have one of Frill's henchmen essentially kill her pet was the reason why she was attacked and that she was going to get killed. Because later on it shows it shows Neru, essentially her situation with that same completion of her mission. She put away her pet too, and they specifically said, why would you put him away you know that if we don't kill that, we have to kill you instead. So it implies at that point that was why Ioto was attacked, is because she put her pet away. And Neru, in the same situation, did the same thing, and they pointed out you're basically sacrificing yourself. So that was interesting. And again, doesn't really explain why they have to kill the pet. Again, this is going to be one of those many questions they've created that is not going to get answered if they don't do a continuation. But essentially, after this whole situation, she continues on. She ends up meeting Neru somewhere. Neru's behind her pet mouse named Adam, and says, thank you, please look after Adam for me. I'm leaving. And Ai's like, you're on a vacation. She never answers her text. And then cut forward, Ai ends up going to school, and when she's at school, she ends up seeing Koito. And this is when we kind of find out that, everybody they saved, this is an answered question, everybody they've saved have indeed been revived. The unfortunate thing is that when they're revived back in the world, it creates a noise that will alter things around them. So they come back, but they aren't really themselves. In the case of Koito, she doesn't recognize Ai. Ai's like, hey, Koito, and she's like, you're being awfully friendly, and then she walks away, and then she ends up bumping into somebody else, and they kind of they start teasing. She's like, well, who's this person? And Koito says, oh, that's just that girl that's, being painted by Sensei, and I knew he was a good guy. And they start giggling about it. So it's kind of like, completely not acknowledging Ai and kind of teasing at her, bullying her in a sense. So Ai obviously is upset by this and runs away. But we also find, here's another answer we got. This is answer number 2. We finally get what Sensei said about Koito. And Sawaki, the Sensei, basically says that why she killed herself. And this was because he said that at her previous school, she knew a teacher. That teacher ended up ending his own life. And then when she came to this school, apparently she was constantly in contact with Sawaki as well. And that day when she ended her life, she said that she was going to the roof and wanted him to come there to see her. And if she didn't, she was going to end her life. And he didn't go. And he said that she apparently was yelling that he basically sexually assaulted her. He said, the translation was, she said pretty much everything she could possibly say or something like that. It's kind of a vague statement. It's kind of implying what she was thinking. And so it's kind of an odd translation. So yeah, he said that when everybody left, she lost her balance and fell. Which again is another implying that they know that she lost her balance. Is kind of an odd statement to say. But we have an answer there. She essentially drove this other teacher to end his life at her previous school. And then when she came to here, she apparently was manipulating Sawaki in some way, and then eventually went to the roof, said some inappropriate things about him, and then did it again. Like this again was that whole idea of my curiosity for what they're going to do with Koito could be a couple things, and one of them was that she was jealous of Ioto, and so she was doing this in order to get his attention, and then when he didn't give her the attention, she lost it, essentially. So really did end up painting Koito to be a very jealous and twisted girl. But that's the troubling thing with this, and you can't really, with a story like this, you can't really go based on one perspective. So this is what Sawaki says happened. Unfortunately, we'll never know what Koito said happened. We don't have another perspective, so we have to take his perspective of it. Now, the story could be as simple as, yeah, this is the lowdown, this is exactly what happened, this is what Sawaki said, this is exactly what happened. Or it could be a case of, we'll find out later that Sawaki was, lying and claiming that she was a manipulative girl and that she did it her own volition, basically. So anyway, that's an answered question there. So we have 2 answered questions. Great. And it was interesting because when Koito first said that I was being awfully familiar, I had a thought here that this is going to possibly be a case of Ioto, the real one, died in that she went to the parallel world that the one that ended her own life was at. I thought that would be a really interesting twist there. Again, that whole idea of the parallel worlds and just jumping around. But that didn't really seem like the case the moment they went. It was on my mind more because, like, following the scene of Koito saying this, they immediately went to a scene with Ai along with Rika and Momoe all at a karaoke place. And last time we seen Rika and Momoe, they were traumatized. They experienced the fear of death, and they were traumatized. And then suddenly out of nowhere, they're all at a karaoke bar and they're all having fun. It's like, wait, so now they're okay? Wait, is this a parallel world? But then I'm like, wait, no, that wouldn't work because I don't think she knew those two. She wouldn't have known those two in the other world. So, but this is the point in which we find out that Rika, she did end up finding Shimmy, and Shimmy essentially was like, you didn't acknowledge her existence and like this other idol more. And so this turns into the whole thing where Rika's like, I'm much cuter than this other person that Shimmy's seeing, right? And I wouldn't answer it. At the same time, Momoe talks about the fact that Haruka, she found Haruka, and Haruka, like, immediately got offer from a boyfriend, a new boy, and she's quickly got a boyfriend. So she's like, did she ever like me? She's like, literally just went off with some other boy now. So, yeah. So we essentially, again, answered the idea that we now know that they did revive, and they're essentially moving on and not acknowledging the existence of their previous life, which was knowing these girls. And it's at this point where Rika's still set on her vengeance. She wants to get vengeance against these crazy things that Frill is controlling. She wants to get revenge for her lost pet. I'm calling him pet because I can't remember the name of him. It's been so long. But Rika's like, let's go get revenge. Let's go back in there. Let's go get an egg and go back in there and get our revenge. And Momoe is like, no, I'm done. Like, what I seen, I'm done. I was like, Momoe is like, y'all are crazy. I'm done. Which upsets Rika, but at the same time, you know, they have their own choices. And so it seems like Rika and Ai is going to go back. We also get the I forgot about before this. We also get essentially acknowledgement that Neru's sister is back as well, and when Ai goes to see her, she doesn't Neru. She believes that it's Neru, and Neru says, "You know, I don't recognize you." And it's not until Tanabe later calls Ai and says, "Look, the one you just met is not Neru. It's Airu, her sister." So again, we've acknowledged that Neru completed and got her sister back, but you know, and then at some point Neru disappears. So we did find out that at this point, Neru has completed as well. Her sister's back. But then Tanabe pretty much invites them to go to Neru's house, where she's living at once Airu came back, because they didn't want to live together. And here's where things get really crazy. Everything was okay to this point, honestly. Everything was okay to this point. I mean, I had that bittersweetness about the fact that the people they loved now don't even acknowledge them. They've basically risked everything to save them, and they're just not getting recognition. But yeah, let's basically call this the Neru's House of Horrors scene. They come to Neru's place where she's been staying since Airu come back, and Kotobuki shows up. And of course, they're like, wait, Kotobuki, you're not supposed to be alive. And Kotobuki's like, oh, I'm just Kotobuki from this alternate parallel world, and I just came over here once the real Kotobuki here died. And so they're like, okay. Let's go with this. And again, Tanabe basically like, yeah, Neru completed her mission. Airu came back. She didn't want to stay with her, so she came to live here. Let me show you the footage that we captured of when Neru completed her challenge, or completed her mission. And this is an unfortunate scene because, I mean, we've had a couple slip-ups with animation before now. I mean, there was this whole scene when they had the whole portrayal of Ai going to see Neru. It portrayed it as like some kind of just rain happening, and she's like in some weird trance. But this was like most the entire scene of Neru completing her mission, and almost to the end of the whole encounter itself was not even visible. We just seen the characters back of their heads. I mean, we didn't even see what happened in the dream. We're supposed to be watching the dream. We're not seeing the dream. But we do get a clip. We do see the end of it. Essentially, what happens is Neru defeats this last mission. And then she is confronted by Frill and her henchmen. And that's when they state the fact that, you know, yeah, if you don't let us kill your pet, you have to die. And Frill shows up. This is where things get crazy. Frill shows up and essentially says, I can make you human. Let's be friends. I can make you human. And this is apparently is the point in which we kind of lose contact with Neru. Is whatever happened after this, Neru essentially leaves and disappears, and we don't know where she's at. And then following this scene, we of course get basically Rika and finding out that Kotobuki essentially created Neru as an AI in the image of Aidu. Aidu got jealous and killed Neru, or tried to kill Neru, and then went and ended her own life. This aspect of Neru being an AI causes Rika to say, forget it, I'm out. I mean, she's not even real. There's no point in even continuing to go after Neru. There's no point in even going back. Now, this is an odd thing because Rika wants revenge, and it isn't until she finds out that Neru is an AI that she's like, I'm done. I'm good. I don't want to get involved anymore. It's like, well, your point of going back was to get revenge. It wasn't to go help Neru. It wasn't until now that we find out about what's happening with Neru. So it's kind of an oddity. But it seems like, at least I guess the only way I can answer it is it seems like after that scene, Rika breaks down because it seems like she feels like this is an impossible task. Like she's like, I'm going to die. I can't do this. Maybe what they see in the footage, maybe seeing possibly Frill and the other ones there, if they were there, because we didn't see anything, maybe that's what scared her. But yeah, really weird. Like I said, the Neru House of Horrors, parallel Kotobuki. Kotobuki apparently created Neru in the image of Aidu, and apparently Frill, I guess, seeing another AI that she can be friends with, was like, let's group up together, and then Neru disappears. So, yeah. Following this Neru House of Horrors and Rika's little breakdown, essentially, it seems like they come to an understanding that this is an impossible task. Whatever they've seen on that footage is obviously a dangerous threat. And Rika's out. She's like, I ain't going to go back in there for this AI. Whatever was on that footage is going to kill us. Ai seems to be afraid of it as well. She seems to be conflicted about Neru. And following this, Ai keeps getting calls from Neru, and she never answers them. And at some point, she chucks her phone. It seems like she's sorrowful with her mother, like she's done something terrible, apparently abandoning Neru. And then it seems like it cuts forward. She's going back to school. She went to a new school. She's going on with her life. And at some point, she remembers Neru. And she just can't get her out of her head. And this is the point where she decides, look, I'm going to go see Neru. And she rushes off to the gotcha ball machine and goes to get another egg. And she's like, I'm going to go see Neru. Neru's waiting for me. And that's where they stop it. Oh, boy. So like I said before, we have answered essentially the aspect of what happens once they get saved. They get revived, but a noise happens, and it seems like they just forget the persons that they were with before. They have no recollection of them. There's no bonds. Their memory seems to have been kind of rewritten. I was at some point wondering if it was the case that they were from a parallel world, but that doesn't seem to be answered. It just seems like they're implying that they are literally revived. So that, again, that essentially is answered. The other answer is that, yeah, Neru does complete her task. It does answer the question of why Aidu stabbed Neru. It's because she was an AI created in her image, and she got jealous, stabbed her, ran off, and ended her own life. So that has been answered. So we got two so far. Third answer, we do know now that Koito, according to Sawaki, is a manipulative girl, and that she apparently lost her balance and fell, and that's why she died. She was trying to manipulate Sawaki, didn't work, ended her own life. So there's the third answer. And I think that's it. 3 answers. We have gotten 3 answers from this finale, supposed finale. What question did we create? The questions about parallel worlds. Why did Kotobuki come there? How did she come there? How did she transfer across worlds? How did she know her parallel self was dead? Again, why did she go there? 2, why is Neru an AI? Why are we going this direction? That seems odd. 3, where did Neru go? Is she in the dream world? It seems like she's in the dream world. That seems like why I wants to go in there, but where's her body? Is she just uploaded into there? 4, what was the conversation? What did Frill want? Why is Frill befriending her? Because she's another AI? Why, are they becoming friends and how can she make her human? Is it just a fake out just to manipulate Neru because she wants to be human so much? It hit a lot on this episode about her essentially being unhappy in that she could be human by assisting Frill in some way. What is that assisting? What does it mean to be her friend? 5, obviously, we never concluded Frill's story. Frill's still out there. She's still causing death. Essentially, the Wonder Egg priority system itself is still in play. Akka and Uraka is still there. So the whole thing of Akka and Uraka going after Frill is still a thing. This is still continuing. 6, was there anything else in that footage? Like I said, we didn't see really any of it except for Frill showing up and offering friendship to make her human. What did they see in that was so detrimental? And along with that, why is Rika now out of the picture? She wanted revenge, and now she suddenly is like, nope, Neru's robot, peace out, I'm out. I think that's pretty much it. It's just, like I said, this is, I'm willing to criticize when something is, I love something. And it's not that I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. It's more of a thing of, I love Wonder Egg Priority. I have been screaming from the rooftops about how great Wonder Egg Priority is. I think it is a fantastic series. It's unfortunately one of those things where I want to tell people, go watch Wonder Egg Priority, just don't touch that last episode. 13th episode, whatever you want to call it, special edition, don't watch it. It is going to... I almost think that it's a better series without the 13th episode unless they do a sequel. So that's kind of where I'm leaving it, and I kind of suggest other people. Like, I suggest people watch Wonder Egg Priority, but I think people should suggest people not to touch the last episode unless the second season gets announced, because this thing did nothing to conclude the series, and it did everything to muddle it up. I don't know the intentions of Cloverworks and the team. If this is an intention to, lift a middle finger to everybody, if it's an intention to go to a second season, or if it's an intention to, in their own warped mind, conclude the series, because it didn't. It didn't. It literally created too many questions, and it concluded nothing. Where's Thanatos? What's the whole Thanatos thing? The fear of death. None of that stuff really they got into. I mean, they basically set up the end of the last episode, episode 12, Wonder Egg Priority, with this idea of, or 11 if you want to call it that, this idea of, this is the main goal. Frill is evil. Thanatos, evil. Fear of death, evil. Let's go after this. And this episode said, let's not look at that. Parallel characters, Neru is an AI, Frill befriends her, everybody ditches. It's like, you had this concept, and it took a different turn. It's very odd. It's a very odd decision, and it doesn't make any sense in the end. Like I said, if they end up going to a second season, then we can kind of start talking about that. Have Oto go after Neru, tell Neru, I love you for what you are. You don't have to become a human. What does it even mean to become a human? Obviously facing off with Frill, stopping this whole thing from happening and going forward. Possibly saving Himari. I mean, they didn't even get into Himari in this entire episod. Akka and Uraka were literally only they only showed up at the very end to kind of go, oh, so you're going back? Cool! It's like there was no conversation with Uraka and Akka about what happened. I think that's another troubling thing is, with what happened to Neru, her being confronted by Frill, this should have been talked about by Akka and Uraka. We should have seen what they thought about this. This is essentially, unless they're seeing something else, this is the first time we've seen Frill. And they obviously can watch what's happening. Why did Akka and Uraka not have a moment to talk about Frill showing up and offering this to Neru? That's a huge missed opportunity. That should have been a huge point in this episode. That was the other thing that was the new question is why did they have to kill the pets? what was that about? What is a pet signifying? I know. I'm so muddled. I literally, after watching this episode, I had to think on it. Plus, it was late. I didn't really want to record a video, so I kind of slept on it. I'm so mixed. I really don't know what Cloverworks is thinking. This is a fantastic series, and if they don't do a sequel, this is going to muddle it. So I don't know. I'm talking in circles, so I probably should wrap things up. I'll probably think of something that I meant to talk about after I stop recording. But I hope you guys enjoyed my impressions of episode 12, the special edition of Wonder Egg Priority, episode 12 or 13. I don't know. The finale, the end of Wonder Egg Priority. I hope it gets a second season. This hurts. It does. It just muddled it. But let me know in the comments down below if I missed something interesting to you guys. Discuss it. As is the case when we were watching Wonder Egg Priority, we could just come together and just kind of hug it out. Let's enjoy the sorrow together. I was half tempted before I watched the episode when we were having issues with the streaming process to say that I'm crying, but it's not because the episode. It's because I can't watch the episode. And then it turned into pretty much I'm crying not because of anything sad happened in the episode. It was pretty much a pretty laid back episode, honestly. I just want to cry because I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing to my baby. This thing was a 10 out of 10. This thing was a anime of the year. And now this is kind of muddling it. It might come to those cases where if by the end of the year they don't announce a second season, I will be nominating this for anime of the year. But minus that last episode. It's kind of like Anoa Zero. I tell people that Anoa Zero is a fantastic series. Just season 1 only. Just season 1 only. But I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts, my reaction to Wonder Egg Priority Special Edition. As always, if you like this video, leave a like down below. Comment, let me know what you thought. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. And y'all take care.